Hey, it's Craig the Spa Tech. I have two stories that are about two different people who tried to be a little bit too aggressive getting their alkalinity and pH down. Um, if you're watching this by the description and you've had this problem where you fill your tub and the test strips are reading insanely high alkalinity and pH and you're always adding the decreaser and you can never seem to get it down, it takes forever. Uh, the maximum dose that you can add of that decreaser is an ounce to an ounce and a half. That's a dose, depending on your spa size. You can't add any more than that at a time, and you can't add any more than 3 spread out in a day. So morning, afternoon, evening. Test strip the next day. If it's still high, morning, afternoon, evening. Test strip the next day. Keep doing this until you get the alkalinity and pH down to the okay level without overshooting it. And the way you have to do it, the reason you have to do it like this is your alkalinity and your pH are both sky high. When you add decreaser, it brings the pH down a little bit, and you got to give a few hours for the alkalinity to come with it. And you keep doing this, it brings the pH down a little bit. You got to give a few hours for the alkalinity to come with it. So you keep getting them both down slowly together over time until you get into the okay range, and then it'll be a stable alkalinity and pH together, and you won't get pH bounce and all this weird stuff happening. Plus, what you also have to tell yourself is these chemicals are an acid. So the two instances where people went a little aggressive was, this was about 2010. This customer had about a 10, 11-year-old Sundance Marin, and I was working on it, replacing something, temp sensor, flow switch, circ pump, something. And the guy's standing there looking over my shoulder, and he points in the equipment compartment and he says, "Those heaters are junk." And it was one of those Sundance, not the plastic heater that's alongside the control box, but that 3-inch stainless steel vertical tube heater on the side of the control box for these late 90s Sundances. And he tells me, "These heaters are garbage." And I said, "No, they're not. I hardly ever replace these. These will take a freeze. It'll bulge the top and the bottom, and they'll still work." And he says, "Well, I've gone through 3 in 10 years. You have my attention." So we started talking about it. And I immediately went to water chemistry and, what are you using? How are you getting your pH down? Are you testing? Are you using decreaser or muriatic acid? And he says, "No, I'm using the granular decreaser." I said, "How many doses a day and how many days does it take to get down? And are you testing it once it's down?" He goes, "Well, they tried telling me that 3 doses a day nonsense. I just take a cup and a half and dump it in." Really? A cup and a half of pH decreaser at once? And he says, "Yeah, I do that a couple times and it gets it down." And I'm like, this is so aggressive chemical wise. I said to him, "Let me guess, about every 3 years your GFCI breaker's tripping. Somebody comes out, replaces the heater, and the breaker holds." And he says, "You got it. Those heaters are garbage." And I said, "You're probably pitting out your heater by dumping a cup and a half in. Plus, if you add it so drastically, I can't even theorize what's going on with his water if he's adding that. He must be bottoming out his pH. His alkalinity is staying high, and then he must be getting pH bounce, and then he probably adds more, and he brings them both down. He probably bottoms it out." And I said, "There's a reason we tell you that 3 doses a day for as many days as it takes nonsense. It's small, safe doses of an acid to bring both your alkalinity and your pH down together over a couple of days till you get that okay range, then it's stable." And you know what I found over the years was I used to get my pH down in 5 days, 3 doses a day for 5 days. And I used to bring it down to like the low end of the okay range, 7.2 to 7.4. And it would be stable for a couple of weeks, 3 or 4, and I noticed it would start drifting out of the okay range. So I'd add a scoop of increaser, bring it back up. It'd be good for another 3 or 4 weeks and start dropping again. Then I found if I get it down to the high end of the okay range, like 7.8 to 7.6, it's very stable. I get it down to like 7.8, 7.6. I never have to touch the pH for the rest of that water until I dump and refill. So I can only theorize that this guy was pitting his heater and then bottoming out both of his alkalinity and pH, and is just destroying his heater. I was probably replacing a circ pump because I think he destroyed that too. The other story that I have is I had a coworker, and when I moved to Muskego in 2012, and I was talking about getting the pH, because this is the first time I'd been trying to balance water that came out of a well. So this is my first bout with personally trying to get my own pH and alkalinity down with hard water. And he was like, yeah, where I live, it's really bad. I've got to add 3 doses a day for like 11, 12 days. And I'm like, wow. So after a couple of years, he comes up to me after a 3-day weekend, Memorial Day, Labor Day, whatever. And he says, well, I drained and refilled my spa and I got it balanced in 3 days. And I'm like, really? How'd you do that? And he said, muriatic acid. And I'm like, that's a little aggressive, don't you think? And he says, well, it worked, didn't it? And I'm like, I know this guy, and unless he's experienced it himself, you can't explain something to him. He has to experience it for himself. He's just got that personality. If you try explaining something to him that he hasn't personally encountered, he'll just be whatever, you know. Okay, so I didn't even touch it. I just let it go. About a month or so later, we're chatting, and he says, you want to know something weird? I have to add pH increaser every week just to stay in the okay range. And I'm like, there it is. There it is. I knew it, because he got it down so quickly, so drastically, probably brought the pH down without the alkalinity coming with it, or probably overshot it, that when he overshot it, it just wants to keep sinking like a stone. So that is why you can only add 1 ounce to 1.5 ounces of pH decreaser at a time, depending on your spa size. You can only add 3 a day, and you do 3 a day, test strip the next morning, 3 a day, test strip the next morning. If it looks like you're getting close, add 1 or 2 doses, test strip, to get to that okay range without overshooting it. You get down to that high end of that okay range, I guarantee if you get them both down slowly over several days to the high end, you're going to be stable. It's going to be so stable, you probably won't have to touch that pH more than maybe once or twice in the life of that water. Very stable. So that's my story about pH decreasing with extremely high alkalinity pH with hard water. It is an acid. You have to bring them both down together slowly, steadily over several days to get to a stable alkalinity pH reading. That's my video. It's been a long day. I'm going to go home. Catch you later.